I'm here with Steve Grove, head of news and politics at YouTube. And Steve, you just finished interviewing the President of the United States. Pretty big deal. How'd it go?
Well, I think it went pretty well. Actually, in some ways, it wasn't really me interviewing the president, but it was the 140,000 people on YouTube who submitted questions online and the millions of folks who voted on which ones they wanted to have asked. I thought it went really well. You know, the president got the chance to respond to some more personal questions, which I think is a unique part of a format like this. People, want to use the internet to learn more about their elected officials at a more personal level. We had some questions on the recent unrest in Egypt, showed some videos that folks have uploaded to YouTube from the streets of Cairo about the protests there. The president was able to react to that and also react to the fact that the Egyptian government's actually shutting down a lot of communication channels outside of the country, and so he was able to discuss that a little bit. And then, we just got a lot of personal stories from parents of soldiers or from people having healthcare challenges, bringing sort of their lives to the questions that they really care most about, and the president was able to engage, right there in the White House.
What was the answer you found most interesting?
Most interesting? Actually, I think the most interesting thing the president said, well, from a technology perspective, I was interested in his response to, for example, Egypt, or how he consumes media, or what sort of YouTube content that he likes to view. But I think some of the things that he said about taking care of veterans who are coming back from Afghanistan and having challenges getting jobs, the way that the government's really trying to focus on that, that was really the leading question of the interview, was a veteran who's been back from Afghanistan and literally can't find work. I think, his answers to people who are really struggling and who brought their struggles to the interview were some of the most interesting exchanges that we saw.
Now, obviously, those are pretty heavy and profound questions, but what did you sense his mood was overall when he came into the room and left, and during the interview? Obviously, there's reason for him to be a little more upbeat now than he was a number of months ago,
certainly.
Especially back in November. Did you sense that?
I think he was more upbeat. We did a YouTube interview last year also after the State of the Union, so I think he understood the format. There was no real big question about exactly how the conversation was going to unfold. I sensed he was upbeat. I sensed he really liked the chance to speak directly to the American people. I'm there just sort of clicking the mouse to make sure the questions get in front of him, but it's really a conversation between the president and the people who've submitted these questions. And I think that that brings a sort of an air of maybe a little bit less formality to the interview. Some people sort of bring humor to their questions a little bit, and I think he finds that more relaxing. And
some people got 15 minutes of fame, like the guy who munched the apple.
Yeah, that was a great moment, wasn't it?
Yeah,
it made the president laugh on live stream TV.
How do you pick the questions? How many were there again altogether?
So we had 140,000 questions,
Yeah.
which is 10 times more than we had last year. Yeah. So just huge participation, over 1 million votes. Basically, the votes determine the questions. Now, we have them bucketed by issue: immigration, foreign policy, healthcare, etc. So we do a light sort of curatorial swoop over the top 5% of voted questions to make sure we're representing all the issues. And we lean a little bit more towards video, just because we ask folks, hey, look, video is a more compelling way to really get your question in front of the president. So we lean a little bit towards video. But at the end of the day, the votes are always the default thing to determine which questions get in there. So, for example, a question on drug policy, which was actually not one of the issues that we asked people to submit on, got a ton of votes, and so we had to listen to that, and the question was actually really good, and the president was able to answer.
Now, if you divided things up proportionately to the number of questions that were asked, you would have had a lot of questions on legalization of marijuana. You don't do that, but when in 2009. Legalization of marijuana was also a huge question, the most popular question, and this time it was. And the president at the time said, "I'm not sure what this says about the online audience." What does it say about the online audience?
Well, I think it says that any group that has an issue they care about can really mobilize behind it, and in a forum like this, get the chance to be heard. Legalization issue in particular, I think last year with Prop 19 on the ballot, has become a more relevant discussion that policymakers are having, and the president, took the question pretty seriously, but. The internet is this place where people who care about an issue can come together and talk about it and discuss it in any way they like, use open platforms like YouTube and Google to post content on issues that they care about, and really uninhibitedly sort of discuss solutions and ideas and directions forward. And so when any group comes to a situation like this, an interview like this, and votes for the issue that they care most about, it's really just democracy in action in the 21st century.
And YouTube really can make a difference, and not just YouTube, but other internet ways. In a country especially like Egypt, like what's going on there now, this is not just a fun issue. This is a really deadly, serious issue that people can use it that way.
It's deadly serious. And we've seen this several times over the past few years where regular citizens with cell phone cameras in the streets of their countries are documenting civic unrest, many times in places where the traditional media can't get, where violence can't be captured by local media sources, and broadcasting it to the world with a free YouTube account. That's a tremendous power shift from the way things used to be, and the Egyptian government's reaction to that has been to try to stifle some of it. And the question that we brought today that someone asked in the YouTube interview was, what do you think about that? And I think the president was very clear that he thinks that's not the way the government should treat the internet, and that really people's use of the internet in these really critical situations to document things that deserve to be seen by the world is one of the most exciting and phenomenal sort of developments that the web has brought to bear.
YouTube, I guess you could even argue, is playing a role in the quest for freedom for people in places like Egypt.
Yeah, we're an open platform. We're not out there creating content. We're out there hosting content, allowing people to view it everywhere in the world. 2 billion video views a day on YouTube. Every minute, over 35 hours of content are uploaded. So we are there for people's voices to be heard, and it's interviews like this where their voices can be heard in a position of power in the White House, where you really kind of feel that, wow, somebody just sitting in their bedroom in Kentucky or California or Denver can lean into their camera, ask a question of the president, and actually have it be heard at the White House.
Yeah. Let me ask you a slightly obnoxious question. I am a White House correspondent after all, which is when I interview the president, I don't ask him questions about CBS and what are your favorite programs and all that kind of stuff. But you kind of tried to some degree to turn this into free advertising for YouTube. Is that a fair statement?
We didn't think about it like that. A lot of YouTubers are just curious what the president thinks about videos on the site, or how the president consumes media, or what he thinks about the latest breaking news on YouTube, like the situation in Egypt. So we really were just looking at what people were submitting and trying to bring those questions to the president.
Yeah. One more time on the marijuana question. Last time it didn't come up at all. Is it really that important to viewers, or you think it's just a very small number of people getting together and just blitzing you guys?
I'm not an expert in where the marijuana lobby is today, so I don't know if I could tell you exactly how it works. I do know that there are organizations out there who did mobilize in a big way this time, and we saw a lot of questions around that issue. And so we felt like, look, we got to listen to this, and if we don't, we're not really being faithful to the system of this interview and the whole format of this interview, which is, look, submit your question, vote on it, and we'll bring it to the president.
Great, and that was the one and only Bob Schieffer who just walked behind the camera there, by the way.
Great little background.
Exactly, fantastic. I always defer to Bob Schieffer. Well, great, thank you.
Thanks, Chip.
Really appreciate it. Great interview. Well,
Thanks.
Not your interview, the viewer's interview.
The viewer's interview,
Great job.
exactly.
Thank you.